So we're going to be talking a bit about Search Console then. And I know, as Alex just said, Marcus spoke a little bit earlier about some of the things that you can do with Search Console. The angle that I come from is a little bit different because I use Search Console quite a bit for the link aspect as well as the technical. So I just wanted to give you a few quick wins that I've seen have worked for clients of ours at Rice, and just a few tips just to help you when you're using it. Why should you care about what I say, I guess, is a big thing. So I head up the search team at Rice Media, and we're a search and social agency in Birmingham, which you can probably tell from the accent. I am half Brum, half Yam Yam, so very Brummy, Peaky Blinders style. And this is just a little bit about me. Like, I'm a dog mom, I love my films, we like bacon. And yeah, so Search Console. So what are we going to be talking about with Search Console? So for me, I'm not a developer. So when I'm looking at Search Console, I'm looking at it from a point of view of my SEO strategy. I'm looking at it from a link building point of view, and where can I find some top-notch links. I know that link building's a bit of a can of worms at the moment. Like, there seemed to be a bit of a debate last night on Twitter about link building and whether we should still be doing it. Like, I saw Barry Adams put a tweet up about that Google had come back with a recon request and put actual very relevant and natural links in there. I've seen that happen too. Like, a couple of years ago, we had a client and Google actually brought the express back in a recon request and said that wasn't a natural link when it was a brand mention. So there are times that this does happen from your disavows, and it's actually, I can see where the frustrations come from, because link building has such value that it's a shame that quite a lot of people within our industry seem to discredit it that much. So when I'm on Search Console, I'm always looking for quick wins. I want to know, what can we change today? What can we find from Search Console today that we can implement quite quickly and get really good results for? So for me, there's 4 key areas of Search Console that you want to be looking at. The Search Analytics report is my favourite thing in the world, and I will happily nerd out about this with anybody afterwards. Just tweet me and we can have a lovely discussion. Crawl errors, they're not just there for technical. There's lots of elements that we can do in this and find really good link opportunities from them too. Data highlighting, which I think is a massively underused part of Search Console. And then internal linking as well. You may find it surprising, but you can find really good internal linking opportunities from Search Console. So, crawl errors. Why should we care about them? For me, it's about more than simply fixing them. Fixing errors is really important. You know, technical is so important. And if you have got 404s on the site, and if you have got pages going to dead links, you do want to fix them. But when I look at them, I'm looking for the opportunities that are hidden within these errors. So within your crawl error report, you can find quality sites that actually have broken links pointing to them. So there's an example of Pinterest here. This client had one of their products that they no longer sell had been pinned. So we can try and leverage this opportunity and get the link on Pinterest changed. But also at the same time, you can use it to spot some of the really low quality ones that you want to remove. So for example, there was quite a low quality blog spot there from 2011 that went to a 404 in page on Diamond Heaven's site. So for me, it's not just about disavowing them. We can then go to that site and try to get it removed, because we know Google's actively picking up this link because it's coming through in the crawl errors report. There's also your internal crawl errors to look at as well. So when you have got your crawl error and you look at the link from section, it could be a case that it was in an old blog post and the product's no longer sold, so you know to go through and update that blog. These are the easiest ones that you can fix and take advantage of, and then you can republish that blog, get some fresh evergreen content on there, reshare it on the socials, and get some traffic back in. So again, you're getting a kind of secondary benefit in doing something with the crawl error that you found that's not always a technical 301 as a result of it. For crawl errors, it's really important to look at them if you have recently migrated or changed your URLs. A small little shout out to my colleague Chloe. She did a talk at Search London last night about migration. So it's worthwhile having a quick look and finding that. I'll share it as well on Twitter afterwards, because she goes really into detail about your migration checklist and what you should make sure you tick off and what you shouldn't do as well. So when you're migrating, if you don't change your internal links and if you keep all your crawl errors there, what's the point? You're just making life really hard for Google. We know that's lazy SEO. We know that you have your crawl budget from Google, and we know that it's quite silly to waste your crawl budget because you're just telling Google really not to come back, and then you won't get the rankings that you want at the speed that you want. Here's an example of when it's been done right. So we had a client that they put their new site live in April. At first, they didn't change their internal links. They left them to be redirected after they kind of saw some of the crawl errors come through. We got them to do it in July, and again, they saw another kind of increase from doing that once Google had picked up all the links had changed. So there's definite value within that. And obviously, this is this year, and only a couple of months ago that this was done. So my takeaway with crawl errors is just leverage them for link opportunities. Don't just think, fix the error, 301 it. Think about what can you do there and what the value is there. If it's a broken link that's a valuable link, go and get that link changed, because then you're bringing more value back to the site and more value from the link. If you've got incorrect internal links, get them changed to the correct version, because again, you will see benefit when Google's crawling the site. You'll see benefit come through in the rankings and the traffic. Internal linking, or hugging puppies, as I like to call it. Internal links are really important. You have got the report within Search Console that shows you the number of internal links on the site and which ones are the most popular. I know that this doesn't get updated as often as it should, so it can lag a little bit behind. But I think, especially when you're working with a newer client, it can give you a really good indication quite quickly as to which pages do have the most internal links to them. And obviously, you want your priority pages to be at the top of this list. So when we were looking at Diamond Heaven, this is from when we very first started working with them, engagement rings wasn't that high up on the list, and whereas that's their priority term. So I knew that we needed to increase the internal linking to engagement rings to help boost that a little bit more than what had been done. If you don't have them, it's definitely time to interlink. My advice is start with the related pages within the hierarchy of that section. So taking engagement rings as the example, I'd do internal links from the solitaire engagement rings page to the core engagement rings page, from princess cut engagement rings. So you can use your subcategories on e-commerce, especially, to link back to your top level category page to help with the internal linking structure. And also for Google, it shows that solitaire engagement rings page is related to the core engagement rings page. Your blog is also a really good resource for internal linking. And if you're writing blogs frequently and not linking back through them, you could argue it's a bit of a wasted exercise. Even if they rank really well, you're not giving the user the place to go afterwards, or the place to go while they're reading the blog, if you're just doing text without any kind of calls to actions in there to go and find the product. So they're your top two places. But with internal linking, it's not just good for ranking, it's not just good for users, but we can say there's an example here where it's actually increased the CTR. We put some internal links in the main engagement rings hub page, and you can see like the solitaire page ended up getting a 22% click-through rate from there, the halo 10%. So there's value in doing it, and it shows that people actually do click them as well. They're not just there purely for SEO, even though they have a value there for a user. But please, no footer links. I hate footer links. I know years and years ago they were really valuable for SEO. I know that we all did it. We're all guilty of using footer links to try and increase positioning a little bit. But when we still see things like this today, I don't even want to read it. Like, it's messy. I wouldn't know where to start on there. It's clear that a lot of these are there just for SEO. And let's be honest, does anybody actually click them? I think most of us just go to the footer nowadays for your about and your customer service at the most. We don't need all these help center links in there. We don't need all the categories within there again and the top brands. They should be within your actual navigation rather than the footer. And especially, there should be no followed if you are going to do this, and none of these were no followed. Because if you do have all these hundreds and thousands of links, especially on an e-commerce site, going to the one page suddenly, it can come across a little bit spammy and could be detrimental. I saw an example, I think it was 2 years ago now, of a client that had an internal footer link to their shop site. And when we removed it, they actually saw benefit from removing it, because the shop site had a slightly lower DI than the core site did. So that's another thing to consider with your footer links. If you're linking to another site in the footer link, and even a subdomain of your own, what's the quality of that weighed up against yours? And could it be hamstringing your quality a little bit? So with your interlinking, the key takeaway is that obviously your priority pages should have the most internal links within them. And if they don't, it's really easy to kind of boost up your internal links and find the most relevant places within the site to put them. Data highlighting. I really do think this is such a massively underused section of Search Console. I mean, schema markup is important to use where possible, and if you can use schema, use that over data highlighting. But obviously not everybody has the resource to developers to do it. Not everybody necessarily has the know-how to be able to implement schema markup. So your data highlighting, it's a really good backup to use instead. It's quick to do, it's simple, and there's so many different areas that you can actually highlight. So I'm commonly using the articles and the local business and products for a number of clients. I haven't used a book one yet, actually. But yeah, there's so much information you can give. And obviously the benefits of your data highlighting is it's really easy. You obviously get the nice big SERP listing. And as we know, the bigger listings and the highlighting on there and the information it gives can lead to an increased click-through rate for you. And for me, the best thing is there's no coding with data highlighting. I must admit, I am not a fan of coding. It's not what comes naturally to me. But I know there's a lot of us out there that live a little bit of code. So a couple of examples of data highlighting that we've done and kind of what we've seen from them. So obviously data highlighting at the blog, very simple to do. You just need your core title, dates and images within there to be able to highlight blog posts. And then an events one as well we did for another client. So it pulled through the dates of the events and then with the link to go through to that specific listing page. And after we implemented those, we saw a 52% increase in visits to those events and also to the December calendar itself, because the December page saw a boost too. So it just shows to get that event data highlight really was quite a quick win to get in there, and it was something that we could do that day and see the benefits of within a week, because obviously it started to show the next time Google crawled the site. Yeah, the key takeaway was very simple with the data highlighting. Mark it up. Why make it difficult for Google to understand what's on the site, and why lose out on something that's actually really simple to do but can be really efficient for you and really beneficial? Now, the Search Analytics report, I know Marcus talked a little bit about the Search Analytics report earlier, and he was talking about the average positioning within there and some of the metrics that are used to calculate it, and also cross-checking it with Google Analytics as well. For me, I don't look too much at that side of the Search Analytics report. It is my best friend, and I think that everything in there is actionable. But when I'm looking at it, I'm looking from a queries perspective. I'm looking at it from a desktop versus mobile perspective. I'm looking at the click-through rate perspective as well to see why a certain piece is getting higher click-through rates than others. Is it that this term ranks really well and it's not necessarily one that we're monitoring all the time? Not so much looking at average position. So I think Marcus's advice, and this piece should hopefully come hand in hand for you and make the Search Analytics report even more beneficial. So one of the reports I use all the time is the pages report. And the first port of call when I use it is to find your top performing pages and also where the potential for improvement lies. So to find that information, you just want to go to the pages section. You can filter the pages as well, and you can kind of layer your data with impressions on there, with click-through rate to get a very detailed report. But what's most important about this is it's your actual data. You know, I love SEMrush. I love Ahrefs and Systrix, search metrics. But obviously the data in there isn't always necessarily your exact data. You know for sure in Search Console that this is your true visits to your site, and it's true searches people have done that have led to you. I like to layer the data from all these reports together to get a really comprehensive report. So with the pages report, once I've filtered it, I'll look and see what content ranks the highest and gets the highest click-through rate, what content gets lowest click-through rate, and also see the difference between mobile and desktop and try to work out why sometimes pieces get more traffic on mobile, like the top piece, and then why some pieces tend to have a lower click-through rate on desktop. I'll actually do the search and analyze how the result looks to then work out what we could do to try and improve these further. So it's kind of as an example. So if we take the wedding ring superstitions and myths piece that's got a really high click-through rate, but it's our content, quick search shows me actually we rank number 1 for it. And on occasion, we also get the instant answer box too. And then when I cross-check it with Google Analytics, see if we get any inquiries or any revenue from it. And we do. Okay, fabulous. So for me, I'm like, okay, the next step is, can I improve the CTA on that blog further? Is the content up to date? Can I add anything to it? Let's republish it too. Let's share it through social. And let's put that blog in the next newsletter, because we know that it ranks well. We know that it drives traffic. And we know that when we get traffic to it, actually some of that traffic converts. So there's a really quick win of how we could potentially look to upsell some wedding rings from a really old piece of content just from that one report. If we look at the flip end of it and want to know why mobile CTR is higher on these two pieces, when we do the search, we can see, okay, the mobile results, they're a lot larger, which we know has been the case for 6 months to a year. We know that you get imagery on mobile, and desktop doesn't that often. I know we're starting to see some tests of imagery within the results on desktop. But the quick win for this is obviously anything that we publish on the blog, we need to make sure that all the imagery is really strong and eye-catching, because that's what's pulling people in on mobile. We know from social work with this client that the picture of the hand with all the different carrot rings on performs very well on social and gets a lot of engagement and shares. So we know that if we can put this kind of stuff online and people are going to see it within the results, then more likely to click on it because they like that kind of imagery as well as the article. So we can use results we've got from social, overlay that with the information we're getting from the search analytics report, and we've got a really good strategy in place and going forward for any blog post. So yeah, lots of opportunities from one really quick list. So I just wanted to run through 5 ways that I use a search analytics report. And I probably do this weekly for most clients, because the data does update. It's not as often as Google Analytics updates. And in some areas, it's not as often as some of the other tools do. But I find there's just so much information in here that we can keep using it and updating it as much as possible. So if we look at the click-through rate, we can see if the positioning is higher or lower than we expected it to be, and then tweak metas. So from this report, what I'd do is I'd take the top terms that we monitor on a daily basis. I'd probably look at the top 20. I'd then look at the click-through rate that those terms get within the search analytics report, and then see where they rank within Google. So if we've got a term that gets a really, really good click-through rate, but it ranks on page 2, we know that actually if we knock that onto page 1, there's potential for that click-through rate to increase even further. Whereas if we've got a term that ranks on page 1 and the click-through rate's quite low, it might be a case that our meta description isn't intriguing enough. It's not calling in the USPs, it's not pulling people through to click it. So we know that if we tweak that, maybe we might see a click-through rate increase within there. There's also kind of the backwards way that actually if something ranks really high, it's optimized lovely, but it's not really getting a good click-through rate. It could be a case that we go, okay, you know what, let's take that out of the strategy for a little bit. It's not that important because it's not getting the clicks and it's not driving the traffic and the revenue for the client. So there's 3 different ways you can use this one report and use the information to change the strategy. When you look at your rankings, I always go for 25 to 50 rankings. Obviously depending on the size of the client and depending on their priorities. Do the rankings on desktop and on mobile, because then you can see that anything that's on the top of page 2 has a quick win potential, that if you knock it over onto page 1, you're going to get some more traffic for it. So take the terms from the queries report, Obviously, you can change it by device on the right-hand side there, so you can flip it between mobile and desktop. Some of them you'll see will cross over, but I guarantee there'll always be one or two really rogue results that come up on one of them that don't show anywhere on the other device. I mean, you'll always get the questions tend to show higher on mobile than they do on desktop just because of the nature of voice search. But there'll be a couple that will take you by surprise. But yeah, if you find that you've got a query that gets a lot of searches and actually you're at the bottom of page one for it, put it in the strategy, do some work to get it higher up page one, and you'll see that you'll get even more clicks for it then. With some clients, this could even kind of replace your rankings report for them, because you can pull in the positioning, the average position of it, as Marcus was talking about earlier, and show where these core areas rank. You can filter the report by questions as well. So if you go to the queries section and then filter, you can just type in a word. So I would do the who, what, why, when, how, and it will bring up any questions. I would do it by an impressions basis, so for this report, because this is a way to find out potentially if there's a piece of content that you don't have that you should have as well. And it can also show you which phrases get the highest amount of searches, so to put some focus to try and get an instant answer for that box. If you do this report by clicks, it will probably only show you phrases that you already have the content there for. So it can give you an idea of which ones need improvement and which ones have potential, but it won't give you an idea of where the next steps kind of lie. So for me, I did a what search on Diamond Heavens, who's a jeweler, to see if there were any other questions that we could jump on that we hadn't already. And one of the things that came up was, we'd already done what is a trilogy ring, what is a solitaire ring. We covered all those bases, but there were quite a lot of questions of what is the difference between an engagement ring and a diamond ring? What is the difference between X and Y? So now we know that they're quite common questions that people ask, and we've pulled that into the strategy now, to make sure that we're covering that too. There's also the element of trends within the Google Search Analytics report. You can use Google Trends too and kind of overlay the data to see if they match. But if you take the impressions report, look at it by queries, and extend the date range to 90 days or past, you can kind of see when things peak and trough a little bit, to help with planning. I use this for more than kind of current work. So as an example, I took Valentine's Day. We have a client that's a florist, and we could see for them that actually the searches for Valentine's Day peaked early January, and then on the 13th of February. So it actually went quite quiet at the start of February. You can see that it really drops. So from a strategy point of view, for next year, we know for sure that we need to make sure that the Valentine's page is live in December. We're getting some work done on it within December to get the initial ranking within January. And then actually, it sounds silly, but there's not much point working on Valentine's Day from an SEO point of view in February, because it only peaks just beforehand. If we've done enough work prior to that to get the early Jan, that can help to even it through. And we can use this data for AdWords too, and know that from an AdWords we need to put a hell of a lot of money on it in the couple of days running up to Valentine's, and maybe trial some early Jan, because we can see this clear. Use everything across your other marketing channels as well. There's a lot of information within this report that you can use on social, that you can use on AdWords as well. So for social, a good example is if you're finding that people are asking a lot of questions, answer them on social too. Do posts on social that will generate conversation around that area of discussion. I'm expecting, well, rightly so, royal engagement fever. Obviously because of the Meghan and Harry's engagement yesterday. I know that if we do a piece of content about royal engagement rings throughout the ages, that's going to be quite popular. I know that trends will kind of replicate that. People are going to be looking for this kind of content now. I know if we do something on social about the different royal rings and princess rings and things, that should pick up quite nicely at the moment. And my trends report will kind of replicate that information, because we'll see a lot of rankings come through. So the jewelry count actually has really high positioning for Disney princess engagement rings. And we see such a strong amount of impressions for that every month. I mean, there's over 2,000-3,000 impressions come through within the search analytics report just for Disney princess engagement. So every piece of content we do about that, we link it back to ourselves, but we know we're going to get good coverage and clicks from it. And we know we can put that across social. We'll get lots of kind of friends tagging each other in the conversation and engagement there. So that's a way that you can use the information you've kind of got in this report and roll it out through some of the other marketing channels that you're doing too. So yeah, your potential really with the search analytics report is pretty endless. And I definitely recommend checking it every week or every fortnight at kind of the latest if you can, because you'll find something new every time you look at it. Yeah. Breathe it, live it, eat it. It's got so much data within there. I wanted to touch on disavows as well really quickly, because I know this is something again that a lot of people are talking about it. There's some experts saying there's no value anymore. There's other people like myself saying, no, I love a disavow. There's still value within it. Make sure you do it. Now, we know they're not always quick, but I do strongly feel that they're definitely a win for clients. And as I said, I disagree. I think they do have benefit, whereas I know a lot of people don't think so. So I wanted to take a bit more of a recent example just to show how they're still having benefit for some clients. So this client, they had a disavow submitted in September 16, and then their core ranking, which is a term that has over, I think it's about 300,000 searches a month, went to page 1 for them. We updated that disavow in June, did a fresh one for them. And as you can see from their analytics, their traffic has continually been increasing because their rankings have been increasing. Yes, there's other work going on too. There's optimization tweaks, there's content, there's link building as well, and other elements for the client. But I strongly believe that a disavow has a good basis because you're getting rid of the rubbish. That's how I view them. And actually what I'm finding is that some of the old favourite spammy sites are creating lots of new domains. So, for example, the Globe, which I'm sure is a site we're all familiar with from years ago. There's now 79 versions of the Globe on a disavow that I recently did for a client, whereas before there was only one domain of it. There's a lot now. So that's why I still think there's some value in disavows, because we know that sites like this are negative for our SEO. We know that they're on the hit list for Google. So if they're coming back into our backlink profile with another 70 odd versions, that can't be good for us. So I do think it's good to kind of clear them out. And as I say, these sites are like a dog with a bone, but in this case, a little stick with a little dash hound. So it's worth getting rid of it. I still argue as well that you should look at keyword level with your disavows, and tests that I've done for a few clients have shown that keyword level disavows work. And when I talk about keyword level, what I mean is look at the anchor text within it. So when you're in Majestic, look at backlinks for specific anchor text or that point to a specific page on the website, and then do a really harsh disavow on those links. So there's an example where I actually disavowed all the backlinks for a term that has over 200 searches a month. And then from that, I actually saw the ranking for that term go from page 2 to page 1 in 10 days. And during that time, there wasn't any other work done. The client was very nice and wanted to be a guinea pig on this. So there was no links, no technical, no optimization changes to affect that element of the site within that time. So that was the only work done. And as I say, it was quite a high search volume term that went from page 2 to page 1. And they're still on page 1 today. And I update their disavow probably quarterly for them, every 3 to 4 months. So it's something that I like to continue doing because I've seen that it works. And there you go. I still haven't built actually a single link to that page, and it's there. But I do argue, I love links, and I think they have a lot of value for referral traffic. I don't build links thinking of SEO ranking and thinking if I get this link, it will help the keyword to improve in ranking. I build links to try and get the referral traffic through, and to see within kind of my referral reports and to see within my link report within Search Console the really good quality elements that are coming through from that. So yes, with disavows, I definitely think it's worth keeping them up to date. There's a lot of evil still out there. There's a lot of things to be removed. So it's something I just wouldn't take for granted. So the key takeaways then, crawl area reports equals link opportunities. Your internal links, use them for your priority pages. Love your search analytics report. Mark up your data, and please keep disavows within your strategy. Thank you very much.